So how does an ADHD mind differ from a normal mind? I really don't want to say that. The more I learn about it, the more I realize that yours is actually the normal mind, and we just have learned, the rest of us have learned how to adapt to it. So let's talk about one of the things that probably happens to you, and a lot of people say happens to them. And this is with the habit of brushing their teeth. So what happens typically is that you need a cue in order to kind of start you on the habit loop. So the trigger would be you feel icky when your teeth, the plaque, you feel it, or you remember it all of a sudden because it's something that you've done before, and this is how a normal brain would work. And then you get into the action of brushing the teeth and you feel better. You feel not icky. And because of remembering that habit or that reward that you got from it, you're going to start again. And then you just automatically start doing it. Now, in the beginning, whenever any sort of action or behavior, it's all controlled by your subconscious mind. But what I was reading whenever I was looking into an ADHD mind and how that works is that there's a challenge with executive function. That's what they kept saying over and over again. So that means this whole process of actually like doing something over and over again and it actually going into your subconscious mind that you don't actually have to think about it anymore, that doesn't seem to happen typically with an ADHD mind. So I had to look into it just a little bit more in order to find out what the cause of it might be. So when I did that, I noticed something different. So when it comes to the trigger or cue, there isn't that for somebody who has is diagnosed with ADHD. So that feeling of ickiness or remembering it without having any sort of external cue, and that seems to be the key, having an external cue that actually reminds you, then you don't get into the behavior of actually brushing the teeth, which means you never get the reward of feeling better. So the whole idea of like sensing something is wrong and feeling something is wrong, or feeling like you have achieved it and now you can feel good and move on, is not happening. So because that's not happening, the conscious mind is constantly thinking and overthinking. And when you are constantly thinking, that means you're using more of, your caloric values. So you get more hungry and you get more tired. And more importantly, it just does not go into the subconscious mind where you feel safe and you believe that you are actually good at this. So, that whole process is not happening, which will be happening in a normal mind. And one thing I really want to tell you is that I'm not a medical professional. I have no background in that. My thing is engineering as well as systems. So I see how things are connected and that's how I figure things out. If you are on medication, you need to know that it does have an impact. And if at any point you want to get off of it, the biggest thing is that you need to understand that it has psychological impacts and you need to be really cautious and working gradually with your doctor in order to actually kind of rework on all of that stuff. And maybe with the medication, it might impact this whole process that I'm talking about because of the stimulants and it makes you feel a little bit more calmer. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but you just need to realize that if you are on medication, this might, interact with this a little bit more differently. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, is that in the conscious mind, whenever we're doing something new, we have to use our thinking mind. So this might be like when you are learning to walk or even being potty trained. In the beginning, it's really hard. Usually I use the driving example, but you're currently learning that right now. So I'll explain that maybe a little bit later so that when you are in that process, you can understand how your brain is working. But what typically happens is that in the beginning, you're going to be thinking a lot, right? You're planning it and everything because it's new, it's in the conscious mind. And then after that, because your brain's job is to serve you, no matter what, it's to serve you. It wants to save you time, it wants to save you energy, attention, and money or resources, whatever it might be. Then it goes into the subconscious mind and it sits there. And that's when it becomes a habit. So then it becomes automatic. You don't have to think about it. But something is a little bit different with the ADHD mind. So how we are going to figure this out is when you go from the conscious, when you do something over and over again, there's a habit loop and then it goes into the subconscious mind. So the habit loop is going to be the key. So that's where we're going to look at for you. So this is how the process works, how the habit loop is linked with the conscious mind and how it goes into becoming a habit. So let's start off here in the beginning where it says, conscious mind. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but so you do a repeated action, right? Once you create a habit loop, you're doing it over and over and over again. So if a repeated action for you is trying to start a good new habit and you're trying to do that a lot at this point, what matters next is going to be your feelings. So if you feel bad and you say it's not working, that's an internal feeling that you have. And then eventually it comes into a belief where you're trying something new is a waste of effort and time. You believe that deeply. And then you identify with that habit and you say, I'm bad at starting something new, so it's not worth it, so I'm not going to try again. So when you do something over and over again, your brain kind of starts not trusting you. So this is why working within your capacity is very, very important. So you need to get somewhere, and that's why you're driving. So you get into a car in order to go somewhere. And that's your behavior. You are acting that thusly, and then your reward is that you achieved what you needed. So this happens over and over again. It becomes a repeated action, and then it goes into the subconscious mind because you feel safe while driving. You believe that driving a lot is a waste of energy and you using your conscious mind is too much. So then you say, I am a good driver, and you stop thinking about driving to the point that you can get home and you don't even know how you got there. So the same way as walking or going to the bathroom, this is the same process that happens. Eating is the same way. You pick up automatically and start eating. You don't have to think about every single process. Mostly, a lot of people, there's an issue with the way that we are raised. A lot of it is social conditioning in which we do things just because we have to. So that might be something you have to ask yourself.